How to make homemade wine. Wine is fun to make. I generally make fruit wines instead of grape wines, but there are books like this one that give you all the basic steps on how to make different kinds of wine and different types of wine, whether it be a really strong wine or a milder wine. And this is a catalog from a wine supply shop that I get my supplies at. And generally your supplies are going to be equipment and ingredients. And here's a picture of some ingredients that you're going to add to your wine. They're all natural. Acid blend is acids, pectic enzyme to break down the juices, and the one up front there is a sanitizer. You have to sanitize everything that your wine touches, whether it's part of your equipment. Anything that wine touches has to be sanitized. And the first thing you want to do is mix up your ingredients in the sugar and some water, and make like a sugar water, and then add your other ingredients besides your fruit, everything except the yeast and the stabilizer, which is shown here. And you want to put it into a primary fermenter, which is basically a plastic bucket. The little thing on top is an airlock. You don't want air touching your wine, and that lets air out because the yeast converts sugar into a gas, but it doesn't allow air in. And you want to take a hydrometer reading of the must, that's the liquid, before it starts turning into wine. And once that hydrometer reading gets to a certain level, you're going to rack your wine into a secondary fermenter, which is a glass carboy or glass gallon jug. And while it's doing this, while the yeast is converting the sugar into wine, it will foam up, so always leave room in your bucket. If you make big 6-gallon batches, you might use more than one bucket because it will foam up and overflow. And you also want to stir your wine every day while it's in the primary fermenter. And this is the only time you want to agitate the wine at all. When it's in the secondary, you just want it as still as possible. And I use a paddle, a wooden paddle for that. And this is an example of racking wine, or the end of the process. And what that's going to do is clear your wine. It leaves all the sediment, and basically a sediment is any pieces of fruit or dead yeast cells that settle at the bottom, and it helps clear your wine. Wine generally, when you first start it, is fairly cloudy, and of course, when people judge wine, they judge it. One of the things they judge on is clarity. So this helps the process of clearing the wine. And of course, you're going to keep taking hydrometer readings of that wine and make sure that everything, all the sugar gets fermented out. If not, there's tools or things you can use, ingredients you can use to help it restart a fermentation. What I'm doing now is crushing what's called a Camden tablet. Anytime you rack your wine, you want to put one of these tablets, you want to crush it and put it into the container that you're racking it into. What this does, it's extra sanitation. You still want to sanitize, but this Camden tablet actually preserves the flavor and gives it a little bit of extra sanitation. And I'm getting ready to start racking this. This is a gallon of blueberry wine that I have going. It's been going for about 6 months now. You got to be very careful when you stick the tube down in the jug, because if you stick it down too far, it'll just run over. Trust me, I've done it. But there's a little hand pump on that, and it sends wine into the tube, and once the wine gets to the bottom of the tube, it basically gravity feeds. It's a siphon, and you want to do that, of course, from the primary fermenter to the secondary fermenter. It is about 5 days. Once it's in the secondary, the glass containers, you let it sit there for 2 months before you rack, and then you want to make sure your wine gets all the way down to 0.90 on your hydrometer, and that means all the sugar has been converted to alcohol. And this is an example of the sediment that settles at the bottom. It's just, like I said, dead yeast cells and fruit pieces. And then before you bottle your wine, you want to re-sweeten it. And again, you boil your sugar and make a syrup and bottle it. And this is, I've got a 6-gallon batch on the right of Concord grape wine, a gallon batch of Concord grape wine in the middle, and on the left, a gallon of blueberry wine. And that's basically how you make wine.